In today's NBA, with all the new second apron rules and salary cap BS that honestly I don't even really understand, it is very hard for a team to not shell out a ton of money to make a quality roster. Some teams try to go around that, if you know what I mean, while other teams just get super lucky and find hidden gems that produce far better than their contract expects them to. And the Detroit Pistons look like they had that type of guy this year. Daniss Jenkins, an undrafted rookie last year, turned two-way G Leaguer and now key member on the best team in the Eastern Conference. And rightfully so, the Detroit Pistons decided to pay this man a couple weeks ago. But that's when Daniss Jenkins went from one of the best breakout stories in this year's NBA to now being one of the worst return on investments in the entire league. And if you don't know him yet, you better stick around and you better learn, because this player's downfall could be one of the key reasons we see a Detroit Pistons early playoff exit this season. But very quickly before we get in this video, if you guys enjoy this type of content, all things NBA, please make sure to hit that like button on this video. And if you guys want to stick around, join my community, please make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to get monetized here on YouTube. And so right now, every single subscription means so much to me. But with all that out of the way, let's talk hoops. So if you don't know who Daniss Jenkins is, let me catch you up to speed. He right now is one of the first players off the bench, a backup guard for the best team in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons, but he wasn't always a key part of their rotation. Last year, Daniss Jenkins went undrafted in the NBA draft, and that caused him to be signed to the Detroit Pistons Summer League team, ultimately being converted into a two-way G League player. And last year, he really didn't play many games for the Pistons, only about a handful, and I bet you a lot of them were garbage time minutes in games that didn't matter. But about a third of the way through this season, the Detroit Pistons were really dealing with injuries, and so they had to call on some unlikely heroes to step up, and one of those guys was Daniss Jenkins. Night after night, he continued to produce in a starting role with a ton of Pistons players out, and that ultimately granted him a steady role in the rotation as pretty much the backup point guard behind Cade Cunningham. He not only reinforced the Pistons' core identity, which is their hard, rough and tough defense, but he also provided a little bit of shooting relief on a team that this whole season has struggled with three-point shooting. Besides Duncan Robinson, I would probably say Daniss Jenkins is the second best three-point shooter on this squad. But if you don't know what a two-way G League player means, it is a player who basically splits time between the G League and between the NBA. And they only have a certain amount of games in the NBA before they can't play anymore. And Daniss Jenkins, once he developed his permanent role on this Detroit squad, he used those games up pretty quickly. And so that caused the Pistons a couple weeks ago to sign him to a 2-year, $8 million guaranteed contract. He literally started the season making chump change compared to what other NBA players make. Don't get me wrong, he probably was still making a ton of money, to being a millionaire. In what should have been a time for Pistons fans to rejoice, they cemented another piece of their core rotation for the next 2 years, turned into a time of worry, because ever since Daniss Jenkins got paid, he has looked like a shell of his former self. He turned from a solid backup point guard, averaging about 7 points, 1.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists on moderate efficiency. He turned into a two-way liability for this squad. And after getting paid, Daniss Jenkins is now averaging 4.9 points per game on 28% from the field and 17% from the three-point line. But not only are there offensive woes, but on the defensive end, it's very obvious that that intensity and that tenacity has slowed down too. Taking this player from someone who Detroit thought they could count on to come off their bench and provide a spark to a player that fans are tired of watching stink it up night in and night out now. And his personal struggles are definitely showing an effect team-wide, because the Detroit Pistons have had a tough schedule in these last 2 weeks. The San Antonio Spurs then the OKC Thunder, then the Cleveland Cavaliers, then the Cleveland Cavaliers again, and then the San Antonio Spurs again, all in a 2-week stretch. These are all top teams in their respective conferences. And in those 5 games, the Detroit Pistons went 2-3, which is, some scary possible foreshadowing come playoff times if they meet Cleveland, or even if they meet San Antonio or OKC in the NBA Finals possibly. Because it's very obvious that in these last 2 weeks, the Pistons have not looked on the level of these other great teams in their conferences. And these Daniss Jenkins struggles are having a rippling effect across the entire rotation, because I said how his defense doesn't look as intense or as locked in. The Pistons have given up 116 points, 119 points, 113 points, 121 points in these games against some of these teams these last couple weeks. But the biggest ripple effect has to be with his poor shooting, because the Pistons' main struggle right now, and everybody knows it, is their offense and their outside shooting. Outside of Duncan Robinson, the Pistons have almost no outside shooting that is reliable. And so Daniss Jenkins was a great player to bring in because, like I said before, he was probably the second best three-point shooter behind Duncan Robinson. But now a guy that the Pistons have relied on all season for his outside shooting off the bench can't hit the broadside of a barn. In a lot of these games over the last couple weeks, the Detroit Pistons have been shooting below average from the field and really below average from the three-point line. In a league where, a lot of teams rely heavily on a three-point shot. And so when teams are coming down and scoring 3 points every single time, and the Pistons are coming down scoring 2 points every time, it puts a lot of stress on their defense to get a lot more stops than necessary if they were a better three-point shooting team. And like I said, Jenkins and the entire team's collapse offensively could have a lot of terrible playoff implications, because like I stated before, the Pistons just had their toughest stretch of the season, playing multiple, NBA Finals contenders in these last 2 weeks, and really didn't look the best. Now, I did say the Pistons went 2-3 in the last 5 games against those top level teams, but in their one win against OKC, they barely squeaked out a win fully healthy against an OKC squad that was without Shea Egregious Foul Bader, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Caruso, Hartenstein, and a couple other pieces. And in their other overtime win against the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Detroit Pistons once again fully healthy, the Cleveland Cavaliers without James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. And so now we're finally seeing the Detroit Pistons play a lot of these other top level teams in the Western Conference and in the Eastern Conference with them. And, they really don't look as dominant as everybody once thought they did. And although there are multiple other players on the Detroit Pistons that are kind of in a rough stretch right now, Daniss Jenkins is one of those key players that the Pistons have relied on off the bench for the entire season, and now they're looking to go to him when they need him the most, and he's not showing up like he was. Is there still hope for Daniss Jenkins in the Detroit Pistons? Well, I'm not just saying this because I'm a Pistons fan, but yes, I do think there is still hope. Daniss Jenkins is still a very young player. He's only in his second year in the league, and this stretch was the first time that he's seen multiple great teams played back to back to back. And so Daniss Jenkins and the Detroit Pistons now have a ton to learn from in this last 5-game stretch that they can go back on, study, and apply for the playoffs this year. At the same time, every player, every team goes through slumps. Let's not forget, the New York Knicks, another top team in the East, have had multiple stretches this year where they've gone like 2-8 or 2-9 and then gotten back to their usual dominance in the Eastern Conference. And lastly, Daniss Jenkins has proved the type of player that he is. That type of player is in there somewhere. We've seen it. But Pistons fans are just getting a little bit more worried because they did just give him that new contract. And we are hitting a very important time of the season where, teams got to kind of lock in, shore up their rotations, and get ready for a playoff push. And the Pistons are now one of those teams. Jenkins was once one of the Pistons' biggest surprises, and now he is one of their biggest question marks. I guess all will be revealed come playoff time. But let me know what you guys think about the Detroit Pistons. Do you think they are a fraudulent 1 seed? Or do you think, their record shows their type of dominance and they're going to make a long run in this year's playoffs? Also, if you guys have made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you guys so much for watching to the end. But also, you guys made it to the end of the video. You obviously enjoyed it, so make sure to hit that like button on your way out. And again, if you guys want to join my community, hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you. And lastly, if you guys want to see any more of my content, YouTube actually thinks that this video would be best for you to watch next. And so once this video wraps up, make sure to click on that one and you can see another piece of great NBA content that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. But that's really all I got for today, guys. So as always, peace and love.